On this session today, we are going to talk about product management, but really we are going to dive deeper into how doing product management for a B2B products suite is different than managing product for a B2B application suite. So uh, with that, let's get started. Thank you all for joining this session. A little bit about me. Uh, I started my product management journey about 7 years ago. As you can see in this trajectory, I went from consumer-centric product management all the way up to large enterprise product management. Um, I spent some time building a Black Friday experience for Dell.com, then moved on to build Dell's flagship loyalty program. And then for small businesses, built a responsive account management experience. And then for medium businesses and large enterprise, I ended up building the card and checkout experience, APIs for our external customers to consume, and lastly, the onboarding experience that our large enterprises uses to connect their procurement system with Dell as a supplier. So through this trajectory over the course of 7 years, I ended up going through consumer to serving small businesses, medium businesses, and lastly, large enterprise. So I just want to share some of my experience on both sides of the world and how do they differ? Do they really differ? And how are they similar to some extent? So with that, let's get started and dive into it. Um, if we were all in a room, I would have asked for a raise of hand and asked how many of you know a B2B product and what it is. But because we are virtual, let's just talk about it. So B2B simply is where a company ends up selling its product or services to other set of companies. So some examples you can think of is Salesforce, ServiceNow. You have LinkedIn, although it does have a consumer arm. A lot of their revenue generation comes from businesses and recruiters buying their services to reach out to candidates. You also have Dunder Mifflin, a mid-sized paper company out of Scranton, Pennsylvania. They sell paper products to businesses. So those are all examples of companies having stood up B2B product or services for their customers. Um, then comes B2C, something as most of you would be familiar with. This is where a company builds a set of products or services for consumers or end users to consume. So examples could be Snapchat. You got a Mint as a financial services provider in consumer space. You got gaming platforms like Electronic Arts and Tinder. So these are all examples of B2B and B2C products that we are going to kind of talk about and see what things are similar, what things are different, and how to really approach product management in both of these categories. So let's first talk about customer base, right? So when we talk about B2B customer base, you're fairly working with your CIOs or CXOs who are responsible for making decisions on procuring the offer or product that you are serving them. You've got procurement manager who is responsible for figuring out, hey, are you great as a vendor versus other vendors serving a similar or same B2B offering? Then you got finance manager. Most of these B2B products come with a price tag, which is applicable to larger organization or smaller companies. At that point, you also have finance manager in decision-making chair to ensure that, hey, the product that they are purchasing is best for their business. You sometimes also have IT architects and engineers being involved. For example, if your company is procuring an Azure service for Active Directory, at that point you will have an IT architect or engineer in decision maker seat to kind of identify if it's the right solution or offering for the company. And then lastly, you do have end user as well. So once all of these decision makers have made their decisions, end user may end up eventually using the service. A good example is Office 365, right? Your CIO or CTO may end up making a decision that, hey, in my company, we are going to be using Microsoft Office 365 versus Google's G Suite. And then once that decision is made, the product cascades to the actual end users and employees of the company who can leverage the product. On B2C front, really the decision maker is most likely the user. These are consumers like us who end up making a decision to either use a website, download an app, pay for an app, So really the line between decision maker and the actual end user is very thin. B2C products for the most part are role agnostic, right? They are not dependent upon what role do you perform in your professional life, but it is also to an extent profession agnostic. You can always have B2C products catered to a specific segment of the market, but it is not married to your profession as much as a B2B product would be. Um, Now let's talk about customer needs, right? And how do you identify customer needs? So on B2B front, it's primarily relationship based. When you are serving your customers who are really entities and companies, you do want to build a strong relationship with those companies or employees in those companies to really identify what their needs are. At the same time, having industry insights is extremely critical. Whatever B2B product or service you are offering usually caters to a specific industry. At that point, you do want to ensure that, hey, healthcare system in the US has got these set of problem statements and my product solves for it this way. And then lastly, process maps. A lot of B2B products, when they are procured by companies, they are usually procured to solve a lot of process issues, legacy burden. So really putting an effort in to understand what the business processes look like on your customer front, and understanding how do you serve them best with your product or services is what comes to surface for B2B customer needs. On the other hand, on B2B, B2C side, you have got a lot of data-driven actions. That is not to say B2B front, you will not use data, but as far as B2C is concerned, that's the most fair amount of truth you will have to make your call and understanding your customers' needs. You'll also have aggregated user insights. So on one hand, for B2B, you would be relying more on your customer advisory boards, you having making committees for knowing what their needs are. But on the other side, for B2C, you'll have a lot of anonymous users using your services or product, and you'll be really looking at user insights at aggregated level to understand more. And then lastly, it's much more experimental endeavor. And also for that reason, it's much more creative to an extent. You can do much more deeper usability testing. You can reiterate on single solution pretty frequently. So when you compare the two, B2C ends up becoming much, B2C becomes much more experimental in the sense you can fail and reiterate. So when it comes to product decisions, um, how do you end up making product decisions when it comes to B2B product versus B2C? So I was looking for a lot of research and insights into how do these two different kind of products end up defining how you make decisions. And what I came to learn was on B2B front, you end up depending heavily on your customer feedback. They tell you a lot about their organization size, their company culture, their process issues. So you have to rely a lot more on what you're listening from your customer who are consuming your product or are looking to consume a product. Then comes product teams who, once having listened to these customers, can make very dedicated solution set for parts of their customers or all of their customers. Then comes competitors, and lastly, internal suggestions from your stakeholders, your partners, and so on. Um, on B2C front, as we said, it's a little more creative endeavor. It's more experimental in nature. It's for that reason also more intuitive, right? So your product teams end up taking a driver's seat in kind of figuring out what to build, how to solve for things, and really just make product decisions in general. Your internal suggestions also come in handy more often in B2C space. And as far as competitors are concerned, it's kind of at same level for B2B and B2C. Customer feedback, as we said, it could be much more anonymized and aggregated. So you can use it for directional purpose in making a decision, but it is not as heavily emphasized like we have on B2B front. Here is some tiny research done by one of ProductCamp sponsors, Pendo, and they're kind of talking about the source of best idea when it comes to a B2B product versus B2C. Kind of tells the same story in terms of how to go about making decisions and what has mattered the most in trend. Um, then comes the ROI decisions, right? Really monetization decisions and how you really make money, right? So on B2B front, it depends a lot on your customers' organization adoptions. You will have to depend upon your customers telling you that, hey, I have got 1,000 people company. Because we are new to your product, we are gonna just roll it out to 100 people and then scale it up to 1,000 people. So your adoption is really tied to the organization or company that you are serving. It's usually pre-monetized, as in when you take on a product management role for an application that is a B2B application, chances are your sales motion has already taken care of selling the product to the actual customer. Um, Unless you are in product marketing role, then somewhat of pre-sales kind of responsibilities also come to place. But the idea is by the time you are actually managing backlog and building product, you would have customers ready to pay for your service or product. Then you've got really support services and subscription types of pricing model. That is where customers saying, hey, I'm going to buy your thing for X many years for X many users, or even just buying your license. On B2B front, it's much more likely for them to have tiered pricing, unlike B2C, where you would have, instead of organization adoptions, you will have user adoptions. Of course, you can always monetize your B2C product at launch. But unlike B2B, where it's all about support services and subscription, on B2C front, you can have your ad supported monetization framework. You have freemium possibilities as well as subscription in some cases. And on B2C front, you got mostly flat pricing, but it's quite possible that you would have tiered pricing as well. A good example of B2C application that has got tiered pricing is Netflix, right? You got a basic plan and you got 3 more plans all the way up to premium. So it's quite possible that a B2C a company may end up going towards providing a tiered price. But if you look at a few examples, right, on left side, you've got Google's G Suite. They have got per user per month price that they bounce a business or their customer into. On right side, you have got Headspace, a meditation app that has got really tiers just in terms of like annual or monthly, but it's something that you pay as a flat price. So let's talk about product deliveries and how do they differ between B2B and B2C. Right. So on B2B front, you have got longer iteration cycles, right? Of course, that is not to say you cannot make tiny changes in your experience and continue improving. But when you are building something from scratch or when you are revamping an already existing product, your iteration cycles are usually longer because you are heavily working with your customers and understanding their process maps. Your ability to get customers' feedback also makes your iteration cycles a little longer. Um, Along the same lines, it's usually dependent upon a customer's roadmap, right? So what does that mean? Sometimes the B2B product or services that you are offering may require some effort from your customer's front to really adopt within their organization. Either that is a process change, a tools change. So a customer also has to have bandwidth in allocating you some time in their roadmap. So that's how B2B products usually end up becoming more customer roadmap dependent. And then, as we briefly talked about it, you have got longer adoption cycles depending upon the size of the company that you are serving. If it's a large enterprise, it's quite possible one department in one location is ready to use your service or product while the other may not. So really, to end up scaling your product adoption up to all of the organization within your specific customer base or all your customer base, you just run into a longer set of adoption cycles. B2C, in contrast, it's quite common for you to have shorter iteration cycles. You can rinse and repeat a lot of things and reiterate upon your solutions. If you make mistakes, you always have a chance to kind of iterate faster. You are much more user behavior dependent as opposed to customer roadmap dependent for obvious reasons. And then lastly, it's quite possible for you to have very shorter adoption cycles, right? If you're doing your product marketing right, as well as you are doing the product launch right, your adoption cycles for each new feature or capability could have a shorter adoption timeframe. Now let's talk about if they are really different, right? So while we talked about how you make product decisions differently, you monetize it differently, are they really different, right? And what are some similarities? So the core components of your product management functionalities do not change, right? You have to know the customer base. You need to understand their user needs. You work very closely with designers. You have to build solutions with engineers. And lastly, the fact that you have to deliver, monitor, and iterate does not change. Some of these elements look different in terms of time frame or priority, but these sort of things that are core product management functionalities, they do not change. Lastly, I'm going to leave you with this haiku, right? If you have a chance, try both. It's fun to get your hands dirty in B2B space, especially because you get to work with actual customers who are using your services, and the feedback you'll receive on your B2B product will be much more crystal clear, and it will be very much productive. At the same time, on B2C front, it's much more creative endeavor, right? You have chances to experiment, and you can fail faster in comparison to B2B. So yeah, I would say try both and see which one is best for you. So with that, I'm gonna just stop and share. These are my social links. If you all wanna reach out, just have some friends in product management, you can reach out to me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or even email. But with that, I'm gonna stop. We can open up to any questions, and I would just like to thank ProductCamp for organizing this, and as well as all of you who joined me today on this session. Thank
Hey,
you.
Parth. So we actually have a question from David, and he's asking, why is B2B customer feedback more influential than B2C customer feedback?
Yeah, so on B2B front, as I said, the customers are very clear about their own processes. They know what their challenges are. Most of these companies sometimes have legacy burden from 20, 30 years. And when they seek out for a new product or services to help them out, they are very clear on exactly what they need. And listening to them and really driving a product roadmap becomes much more critical in comparison to a B2C product where you are largely dependent upon aggregated user insights or really anonymized usability testing.
Okay, thank you. If anyone else has other questions, feel free to either continue using the Slack channel, but also you're welcome to just speak verbally right now, or use the chat as well. Okay, we don't have any direct questions. Would you like to go further with anything? You still have a few minutes.
No, I think, as I said, if I were to, I see another question like, which did I enjoy the most? I would say I really enjoyed B2B space. On B2C front, of course, it's exciting and fast paced, especially in my experience with building Black Friday experience in short time frame. But on B2B front, really just calling your customer up and asking, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Do you think this will solve for you? They may say yes or no. If they say yes, you have a chance to just reach out to your framework of customer advisory board and say, hey, this is what a couple of our customers are thinking or saying. Do you think this is good, right? So because it's much more relationship based and personalized, I like doing B2B product management a lot more, and I enjoy it the most.
Well, I had a question related to that. Which do you think is harder for a beginning product manager?
I think B2B is much more harder for beginning product manager.
Yeah.
Really, so on one side, B2C front is, as I said, it's very creative endeavor, right? You can spend a week or two in deciding what kind of color your button should be, right? And you can do A/B testing and you can figure out what performs better. on B2B front, you actually have to dive deeper into customer processes, right? You can introduce a feature and that can break or make customers a process map. So yeah, for a beginning product manager, I would say B2C would be best. But if you're looking for something that's much more personalized and relationship-based product management, then B2B would be awesome.
Yeah, it just seems that B2B is riskier. I mean, a lot of B2B companies only have like 3 or 4 major customers. You know, you lose one, oh man, you're in trouble. Whereas B2C, if your customers get mad at you, no big deal. We get 100 of them, thousands.
Yeah, there is also an interesting research on like the percentage of failure, right? So you are right. When it comes to really doing B2B product management, it's quite possible. Hey, you lose one customer and you are done, right? At the same time, on B2C front, you can experiment, fail, and try harder to see, okay, what can you do differently to succeed?
Right.
So yeah, that's true. Great thoughts.
We have another question from Aniket, I believe. How to use data B2B versus B2C differently? We kind of went over that somewhat.
Yeah. So so on B2C front, a lot of times you can run A/B testing. You can throw surveys at your customers, and you'll have aggregated user insights, right? To say, okay, this is the trend. This is what my customers are saying. On B2B front, you'll have to approach data gathering a little differently. Yeah, you will have all the analytics tools and Omniture and Google Analytics in place to know the user pattern and user behavior. But if you are truly looking at data in order to make decisions, then your usability testing will be much more, as we said, personalized, right? You want to really form a customer advisory board of at least 10 to 15 customers, depending upon your customer base size. You want to pick customers from relevant segments so that everyone is represented, and really drive either annual workshops or quarterly workshops to understand you are moving the right direction. But your data in that sense, while is very qualitative as opposed to quantitative, that's how I would say using data insights differ between B2B and B2C.
And kind of following up on that, as far as UX goes, talking about that research piece,
Yeah.
Do you prefer doing the research yourself? Do you have other researchers that do that UX?
Yeah, so we do have researchers that do UX design, dive deeper into really identifying what's best for the customer. The way product manager gets involved in those design decisions is really building a bridge between this customer advisory board as well as the designers, right? So you bring them together, and your usability testing is much more anchored into your customers' processes as opposed to something wide range, something open-ended. So I hope that answers the question. But your UX researchers' collaboration with you revolves around really you providing input and contribution through the relationship you have built with your customer.
Okay, I'm gonna skip a question and go back to it for Ava, so just hang on, because I think it's a big question. But I believe it's Aditya, or is asking, what are your thoughts on consumerization of B2B from a CX standpoint?
I think it's becoming much more apparent that you need to treat your B2B end users as like any other consumer, right? So it's becoming a go-to thing that, hey, when you are making user experience decisions, you have to think of your customers and users as consumers. But at the same time, when you are building features offered to decision makers, right? When you are building features for your CTOs or the a procurement manager on customer front, like for example, spend management, right? Your end user will not care as much about spend management, but your finance manager in your customer's company will absolutely care about it. So when it comes to those kind of features, you do want to have enterprise look and feel. But yeah, as far as end users are concerned, yep, consumerization is the way to go for CX.
Thank you. Okay, so Ava's question is a bigger question. She's asking, what is your quote process for product management? And what she's really looking for is some resources. So this may also be an opportunity to work with the Slack channel Red and further get into maybe some resources that you can source there.
Yeah,
but if you want
absolutely.
to talk briefly about that, we still have a couple questions after that, if we can get to them all.
Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, that's a larger question. But when it comes to process, I'm assuming we are referring to just a product life cycle from conceptualization to delivery. And I really follow the decision-making path the same way we talked about on one of the slides. Over the course of time, you'll start hearing a lot of signals, right? In terms of customers needing certain set of things. Um, uh, One set of signal for an example was our customers back in 2018 or for last 12 years were spending any time between 4 weeks to 6 months in integrating their system with the supplier, our system. And you hear that several times from several customers in different fashion. And then you end up conceptualizing that if I were to build a solution suite that reduces the time to onboard from 3 weeks to 30 minutes, what do I do? Right. So your process for conceptualization starts from really hearing from the signals. On B2C front, obviously, it's more about data and usability. But from that point onward, what really plays a critical role is working with your leadership and executives in recognizing what to build, right? And really building confidence in them that these are the right sort of things. Here are the customers who are ready to consume this product if I were to build, and this is how we'll go to market. From that point onwards, yeah, once you get the funding and the buy-in, your regular product management begins, right? You write backlog, you do sprint planning, you do development, and you go live, do iteration and monitoring. So really the only way process differs is how you conceptualize, how you come up with a way to solve for your problem statements, and how you really go to market.
Okay, and someone's asking about branding. Is that more relevant for one B2B versus B2C?
Yeah, I think on B2B and B2C both front, branding plays a great role, right? While for B2B branding, a lot of the burden falls on your sales team and account managers. On B2C front, the branding really falls onto your actual product managers, right? So they both play a critical role across both B2B and B2C. It's just that you end up doing more of it on one side and you end up doing a little less of it because the duty is segregated across your company in B2B space.
Okay, and I believe this is the last question from Wes. And he is asking, how do you manage achieving outcomes at all levels of a B2B org using your product versus outcomes a single B2C user hires you, your product for?
How do you manage achieving outcomes at all levels of a B2B org? Okay, versus outcomes a single B2C user hires a product for. Yeah, so like one example I can think of is, let's say you have 1,000 people company that you are serving with your product. You really have to build trust and earn their trust, right? You also have to be much more empathetic towards their needs. So when you reach out to them, and of course your goal is for their entire company to use your product or service, but at the same time, once you are vocal about being respectful towards their adoption plans and how much they can consume or change at a time, you work with them on their roadmap, right? You work with them in saying, hey, here is what I'm offering. I recommend you rolling this out to 100 people. And then here are the set of things that you do to expand and scale up the usage of it to all 1,000 people in your company. So it really boils down to you working with your customers and being empathetic towards each one of your customers having their each set of process map issues, their tool set issues, their cultural issues, and really diving deeper into their roadmap in helping them deciding how to best roll a solution out. And it may look different for each one of your different customers in B2B space, and that's fine. And that's kind of what makes it a little more challenging, but also exciting to Dan's earlier question. I don't have any thoughts to share anymore, but thanks a lot, everyone, for joining. I'll be on Slack channel. I'll also be sure of sharing any of the resources I have for the process question. But thanks a lot, everyone, and thanks, Kristen and ProductCamp.
Awesome.